How do do we start with hey everybody on this one, or we do that on the intro? I forget. You
No, it's
always
on
yell
the
at me.
intro.
All right, great.
You can do it either way you want.
No, it's fine. You always get mad at me.
It
All
might
right, here
start this way.
no.
The Play Upstream Podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Play Upstream Podcast. I am Rob Shields.
And I am Cameron Tacey.
We're back, baby. And you know what's going to be great? This is what I really want everyone to be really proud about, is that twice in a row, you now have a podcast on the same date.
Same date.
I don't know. Everyone, did you sit? I should have warned you to sit down, because that revelation means that two people at least have organized one thing in their lives, which is one more than we had before, which is a wonderful, addition to the family.
And we've taken the time. We've recorded this well ahead in advance. So we had the time to prepare, get it up.
Oh my gosh, this was done so far in advance. And I don't know if you, we
had a dream in 2018 to do a podcast.
Bro, we literally talked about daylight savings time like that. You're going to know it. Let's in advance. But it's okay. Art has to be, spontaneous and everything. What a month since we last recorded here. It's been the world now seems like so much changes in like a week or a day. It's so intense. I know that we launched the new podcast that we're really excited about. For us, that was a big step just in figuring out how to even do that. But now it's feeling really good. We're always moving forward as an organization. Next month, if everything in this chaotic world goes right, next month we will have our first ticketed show that we are going to do. We'll reveal that soon, which should be announced fairly soon, I would say within the next week. I'm really, really excited about that. I'm also really thrilled to hopefully bring him on this as well to talk to this person. We'll get into it. I don't want to give away too much because it's going to be a really exciting prospect. And we've been organizationally talking a lot about, what are our goals? What do we want to do? We talked about the beginning of the year because it alluded to that, but I think now I really feel like we're starting to find really strong answers to that question as to what do we do? And I'm really liking that. And it's come from a lot of collaboration with people, and it's come from a lot of kind of understanding what we're about. And I think that always when we started this at the start of, it's been a year just about, right? Good God. I think about that now. We organized solidly towards, July of last year, but we started this process in March. And to think about in a year, when we originally started this, it was this idea of like, oh, we're going to do this stuff, and then when we get back to normal, this will become a norm. Who knows? We'll do theater for real.
At this point last year, we would talk, but I think the first two readings you guys did, I had just seen like an advertisement, and afterwards was like, hey, if you guys need any help, I'd love to be a part of it. Like,
yeah, I also think that you and I were just ancillarily, like we'd see each other like once every couple months at that time too. Yeah. And that's why I really suggest to everybody, we talk about this, like, get a group of friends, make a hobby, get some, this is becoming more than a hobby for us. It's always going to be sort of a thing that we do in addition to our job that pays the bills. Right. But as an artistic endeavor, I always feel like hobby takes you away from what it is. Like, this is a pursuit, right? This is something that we really like, and we're trying to make good. And there's a lot of time and energy put into this, creatively, but I think we just know what we're about now, and that what really it is that this virtual world that we live in is something that we like, and we never thought it had anything because it was something that wasn't really like, what is it? And now we're like, it is this. And what we want to do is bring these art forms and these things to the virtual world, right? And bridge that gap, and also like a new age. I hate to say theater company because I don't think that's what we are.
No.
We're like an artist company. I don't know,
we should come up with like a business like slogan.
Yeah, play upstream. It's like an artist company. All right, we're workshopping it.
Will's gonna love that one.
Oh
Hey, Will.
God. But yeah, so just we always like to give a little update of where we're at. So we'll also have some stuff. We have some great stuff planned for the summer, and then working towards. We've sort of built this where I think the winter time is our best time to put up our biggest stuff. So, but what I'm really excited about, honestly, is the stuff that we talk about building laterally, and that's things like this, our podcasts, right? We're working really diligently on figuring out some new stuff that's going to be awesome, especially trying to break into Twitch. I know we talk about that. I'm not afraid to tell what we're working on, but those type of things are studio sessions. We're finding new artists to work with, new mediums, and just building a great community. And like, that's been really fortuitous for us. But I forget every year that like, no one should ever plan anything from January to like May. Like for some reason, that period of the year for me is the most busy, the most insane, like all these new things. Yeah. Like the end of the year, it's like winter, it's cold. I'm still doing stuff, but I think my brain can wrap around it a little bit. Little people are like calmer, like, oh, well, the holidays are coming. And then like summer, it's like, for me, always, I'm like, it's hot. I feel different. Like I'm uncomfortable all the time. So I want to be outside, but I want to be working on things. Like my energy level is higher because the sun's literally penetrating my flesh with radiation and vitamin D all day. This time of the year is rough, and it's been very challenging. So, yeah.
See, I get really, really busy in the winter, and then January hits, and I have like anxiety over like it's slowing way down because my work goes from like 100 to 0 in January. So like summertime's like my perfect time where I've got I'm busy enough to not go crazy and think I'm not working and doing things, and also have enough time where I can go to the beach and feel like I have an outside life.
Yeah, man.
That's my sweet spot.
That sounds wonderful. I've been sitting in this computer chair, literally working since 7 a.m. So I'm like, yeah, and just doing things and teaching and working on art and doing stuff, which is great. And I'm not mad at it. It's just, these times are really long and arduous. But I know that what's great is that so we got to interview another one of our studio sessions guests, which is really cool because it's nice to get some insight into them. And Rachel Tietz is our guest today. And I like the great part about talking to artists that we've met so far is they're just so versatile.
Yeah.
And we tend to like to put people in little boxes, right? Like you're an actor, you're a musician. And then what we found is like everybody's done like everything, they're very versatile, especially people that we meet that are born from MPT's friend group are just so versatile human beings and really awesome. We're really excited to have them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, I've got a little, I don't know if it's a intervention, but I think we need to talk about it. I don't know if you fully understand what rapid fire means.
Why?
Because I think it should more be called under fire, probably, because your rapid fire questions are, I need a 12-part answer with at least 3 addendums to each part. Do it quickly.
Yeah, what's not rapid about that? And I say I'm fast.
The questions are fast. You like give us a
they're not rapid fire answers, Cam.
You're like
it's rapid fire questions. That's on you, bro. You're misinterpreting what it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's me. You're right.
Yeah, thank you. Finally, we solved it. Well, what do you want? What's your favorite color? What's the best cheese? Actually, what is your favorite color?
Like purple.
Yeah, I like that. It's regal.
I like a good purple. I like neons.
That's good. That's hip.
I like neons.
What's your favorite cheese?
Depends what it's on.
That's an even better answer. See, now that's
rapid.
I don't know because you went. That's time wasted.
Here, Rob, give me a profound quote on life and artistry, and also death and life and relationships.
Great. Always do whatever you're going to do, full-hearted, and never look back.
Too long.
You can't say that. I didn't even pause.
What was that advice?
Well, you can't have it anymore. You got to listen to podcasts. So, luckily, it's recorded. Great. This has been, once again, we've managed to just go off on this topic. This is why we're meant to be, bro. This is it. This is what you do to me. I'm all flustered now because you challenged me on one thing. Anyways, bringing it back. We've got another, just to keep out our list this week. We have a project as well that's super awesome that you should check out. We are doing a reading of True West. Now, a lot of y'all will be like, what's True West? Okay.
What's True West?
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you. And this is not going to be a rapid fire answer. Now, what True West is a play by Sam Shepard. And Sam Shepard is one of a very prolific American playwright. Wrote some incredible work. And True West is super amazing for a lot of reasons. John Malkovich and who played Lieutenant Dan? Gary Sinise? Yes. John Malkovich and Gary Sinise did this production. And what was the only reason I bring that up is because what's really cool, it's about two brothers, right? Not the Rick and Morty show, but it's about two brothers who one of them's a writer and one of them's like a typical Sam Shepard character. Sam Shepard writes a lot about people who are alcoholics and kind of like, I wouldn't say drifters and grifters, but they have family. It's just they're all based on his father and like almost all of his plays have this father figure in them. It's very complex and complicated and deals a lot with alcoholism. It's a lot of the like post World War II sort of mindset of people. It's very, there's a lot of it's a very expansive world they live in. There's a lot of land involved and different things like that. But these two brothers, one of them's a writer, one of them's like an alcoholic thief, kind of thing. But through the course of the play, the way that it's written, and I'm totally okay with talking about this. Like you say, spoilers, gout. I don't care. Like you to learn to love these things. Is that they actually they kind of become each other, right? And John Malkovich and Gary Sinise would switch roles, and it was like brilliant. They knew this play so well they would actually play it opposite, and so a lot of people who are theater enthusiasts. True West is one of those that like I know for me is one that I want to do. It's just visceral, it's pointed, and it's a play that everyone should see. And what the cool thing that we are doing, which is stuff that we've always been kind of talking about, is like turning some theatrical conventions, especially conventions that keep certain actors away from material, which I think is devastating and horrible. Like, there's always room for that. I also feel like there shouldn't be, there's rules to everything, right? Like I shouldn't be a white man playing, the lead in Fences, right? Like there's a lot of different things in this, but I think that accessibility in certain art is really great if it fits within the confines and is acceptable and appropriate. So we are doing this amazing piece where we're doing True West with a non-male cast. Right. So we have some wonderfully talented actors who are joining us. We've got a really cool way of doing this. We're trying to just traditionally no one would have the opportunity to do this who wasn't, generally and for every time that I've seen a white man. And now we're going to do it with all non-males. And I am so excited because these are the type of things that we really want to do. And I think that you should definitely come and see it. It's 100% free. We do always appreciate donations so we can continue to do our more lofty goals, but that's at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the 27th, right? And this weekend we have a double feature, right, which is really cool. And in celebration, I mean, we always want to. I like the month system of celebrating the things we want to do. It's additionally Women's Month, which is a fantastic enterprise and always highlighting, like we've been putting up some stuff about female playwrights that we really get behind and love. Will's doing a great job with that. And we have not only our True West reading, but we also have Rachel Tietz, who's going to be doing a studio session for us on the 28th at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we've got a double feature. That means we won't be sleeping, but you will get tons of entertainment. And come check out the stuff. We want to bring you every month now. We're having a lineup that we're posting on all of our social media. We are very close to having a website ready to rock, and it's just risen up. It does look great. Will Dinwiddie's done a fantastic job with that. But we've talked a lot now.
Awesome, guys. Well, enjoy the interview and discussion with Rachel Tietz. Rob, take it away.
All right, and now we have our wonderful guest here with us, who is going to be doing an amazing studio sessions later this month that we're really excited about. And here they are. It is Rachel Tietz. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing really well. How are you guys doing?
Oof, I'm surviving at this point. And yeah, it's oh yeah. Daylight savings time was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I don't know why, I'm not used to. It's like we've had so much change, and we finally built a foundation of normalcy, and then farmers came, and we're like, no, we need more daylight during our workday with arbitrary numbers, and it really got me twisted. How are you with daylight savings time? Is it such a bother for you, Rachel Tietz?
Not really, because I just have no sense of time anymore. I don't know what day of the week it is. Yeah. I don't know what time of the day it is. It's been a strange adjustment this year. But I welcome the extra daylight. I'll take it.
I'm not upset at it. It always seems to me though, like I'll complain about any weather or anything. And then when it goes away, I'm like, oh, but I loved it. I fell in love with it once it was gone. Oh my God, that might be like my whole life.
Did we just have a self-discovery?
I feel that way about everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it?
I know. Our friend Will's wife Talia always says that, or quoted this thing where a podcast is men's therapy, right, or whatever. They don't go to therapy. They start a podcast. For an hour. Yeah. All right, Rachel Tietz. So as we do this whole show every time, the essential question of this podcast is unveiling you as an artist and individual, so we can better round out how you got to be in the place that you're in, how you create art, why you create art. So this wonderful question that we crafted over a single beer one night is, what's your story? How did you become an artist? What are your influences? How did you get to where you are as an artist?
Yeah, that's a tough question. It all started when I was born on April 4th.
Naturally.
I suppose, there's a really strange sound. I hope you guys aren't picking that up in my... Mm-mm. Oh, you're not? Okay, good. Sorry about that. I'm sure most people say along the lines of, I've been very young and I've always liked to sing and always loved music and movies and drama and all that kind of jazz. So it was always a hobby, but I mostly grew up playing sports and not really being involved in the theater community very much, or definitely not theater. But I would take some voice lessons, and I played the guitar because my brother was a drum player, so he had a drum set. Nice. And I wanted him to invite me into his band, which didn't happen, but I learned to play the guitar.
I never got invited to anybody's band. I was always mad.
Yeah, I asked for a drum set my entire life up from for Christmas from 4 to age 14. And then at age 15, I asked for a guitar, and for Christmas, my brother got drums and I got a guitar.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm glad I did though. It worked out. I loved it. Started writing some music in 6th grade. And I think, my first idea that I might be, I might have a talent for this is, I had a really great teacher in 6th grade, and I wanted to be in this after school GATE program, which was for the smart kids. And, I was in everything but math. I was above and beyond, and they still wouldn't let me in because obviously, math is awful. And so my teacher really went to bat for me, and she had me put together a portfolio of music, as a 6th grader. And they're she writes songs and, she's artistic and all this kind of stuff. So we made a case, and then they let me into this, Smart Kids Club. And that's the first time I really had the idea that there is something to this. It's difficult to do, and not everyone can do it. That really encouraged me to continue forward. But it wasn't until, and I was in choir in high school. And then one day in choir, the drama teacher came in and said, we're desperate. We're doing Jesus Christ Superstar and we don't have any singers. And we, we really need people. So I thought, what the hell, I'll go audition. But I'm auditioning for Judas because I thought the Mary Magdalene songs were really boring. So I ended up playing Simon, and that was my first real show. That's kind of when I discovered, it just feels like you found your people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that really, it was the kind of the community and the openness to vulnerability, and everyone was like a little off and a little weird, quote unquote weird. And I just felt so welcome, and it felt just so easy to be myself. And I think that was the feeling when I realized, like, artists, this is where I belong.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, you talk about that, like you go in this place, you find your tribe, and it's like theater. And I'm, assuming theater now is a bunch of people who really just want to have this unbearable need to express themselves. Right. And it's like, I feel like that energy is so interesting because in theater, for me at least, it was the place where I was like, wow, cool. Like, yeah, not only am I just by default the coolest person there, but like, it's just saying, but also it seems like, there's no need to this. There's not so much of a need to be cool. I don't know if that's necessarily always the case, but it's like people are okay being themselves, I think, is maybe what it is. And I think that, it's like a battery of energy when you can finally like shed off all that insanity.
Definitely. And I think that translates, into that feeling you get, even if you're not someone who's really into the theater, but you go to a show and you just walk out with that feeling and you're like, what is this? And I think that's it. It's just such a safe space to take risks. And I think people need that. And I think to get, to be allowed just to have the opportunity in the space and someone to say, it's okay. And more importantly, someone to say, it's okay to fail, let's play and you're probably going to mess it up. And that's okay, because we'll just fix it later. And, it's just the sense of perfectionism isn't necessarily as important to most people. It's how it felt to me, at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, so my final year, I quit, the varsity volleyball team, and in order to do a show.
Yeah, that's when it happened.
Yes, that's what I knew. I was like, wow, I really need to make a choice. And I had encouragement, and I just feel so lucky that I stumbled into this world, because it's not really something my family does, which of course they support me, which is lucky. But I just kind of stumbled into it, and I stayed. So in the senior year, we did a show, and the director of that show when I was in high school was the casting director of PCPA, the Pacific Conservatory, where I met MPT. We were in the same class. And, and basically he just was like, hey, do you have thoughts about what you're going to do next year after you graduate? And I'm like, actually, that's a source of intense anxiety for me right now, which I think is true of a lot of 18-year-olds.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, well, this could be a job, right? And I said, well, what? Acting can be your job. That's a thing. It's a career path.
No,
and
teacher, this is after school.
Right. That doesn't make sense, well, and it's really ingrained in, perhaps just at my school, they say, oh, you get one elective. So it's like, okay, I can choose between piano, AP music theory, choir, or drama. Meanwhile, I have like 4 science classes and 5 math classes and all these things that it's not for me. So that was such a huge transition. And then going to school for acting, at the conservatory, when it's just 6 days a week, all acting, all art, all the time. And it was just incredible.
Was that a tough decision to commit to that? Or were you full on, you knew you were ready?
I knew it.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah. And I think that's probably true of a lot of people when they tell these stories. It's like, I just knew, when you know. And I figure it's a 2-year conservatory. And if I hate it, what am I, 20 at the end of it? I think I'll be okay.
Yeah. I had a very similar feeling. You know, I did the kind of the same route, played sports, and then I started playing music and got in a band. And I had that specific moment where my friend was having a show in his garage, but I also had a baseball game going on. So I left the baseball game halfway through because I was going to play. And then college I went to for audio recording, my freshman year of high school, I was telling my counselor, how do I graduate high school early? Because that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Like
were they open to that idea, or were they like, you might want to think twice?
No, they hated it.
Yeah, exactly.
They were like, well, let's look at your grades. Let's see where we can maybe let you apply. Maybe you can apply to other schools. And then they looked at my grades and they're like, oh, you have good grades. You can go places. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to that recording school.
Yeah, every time I went to a counselor, it was right after I'd seen a movie. So it was like I wanted to be an archaeologist, and then I wanted to be in the FBI. It was like this, and so I never got anything done of any seriousness. And then if they would have realized what was really happening, was they're like, "Oh, you want to be an actor?" Is what it really is. You don't want to do any of those jobs.
You want to pretend to be those things.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you want to be an archaeologist? Well, you got to take 8 years of math. And I was like, wait, no, I just need to know how to use a whip. Like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so you went to PCPA. Mm-hmm. That's right. I said that right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So at what point did you, because I had that situation when I finished my education where I was like, oh, and then what happens? And no one had really told me like what you do as an actor after you're done with school. So what was that process like for you?
Well, I grew up in this small town, which is in the vicinity of PCPA. And I had my best friend was with me at the time, and our number one priority was just to get far away, go somewhere. And we just decided to move to Chicago. And I sold my car and I used that money to pay for the ticket to get out there. We ended up taking an Amtrak because you can take more luggage with you. So it's just these two, little young girls and our 20 bags of luggage on a 3-day train ride. It was a very silly sight.
It's the start to every movie.
Exactly. The age-old tale. And we slept on air mattresses for a while until we accumulated what we needed. And I think what I suppose what we did was just make an agreement to say, I'm going to just do as much as possible. And in no particular category, just take, be open to opportunities and see who you meet. And even, I advise to actors starting out to take free work sometimes, in my experience, everything that I've ever done, every project has always led me to something else. And if it wasn't another project, it was a person who called me a year later and remembered me as a Facebook contact. When 3 years later, they go, how do you know this person? We're friends. And I'm like, I don't remember. So it was a lot about those. I was in Chicago for 2 years. So it was really, I showed up to do theater because I graduated from the theater school. And what happened was I started doing music and film more than anything. And I was like, you know what, if the universe is sending me this way, then I'll take it. And that's what happened. And then I missed theater. So
right. Naturally. Yeah. It's such a different environment. And I don't think that I've always had those same challenges of like, okay, well, theater, I've never liked film. For me has always been like a departure from like this I don't know, the energy of theater is so different because
I agree.
It's that live atmosphere of like, and here's my show and no one's going to interrupt it. And I'm like creating something, and that energy that you end up feeling from being around an audience, you can't replicate that.
I agree. And it's, something for me that's important that I've realized after trying all these different forms is that the rehearsal process is really important to me. And I tend to be a perfectionist in a lot of ways, so I try to work on that. But the fact that I get time to rehearse it and practice and know that my final product is going to be something that I'm proud of. And that was hard in film because a lot of the times you get the script the night before or it's changing in the moment. So that was a good I think those were good exercises for me to be less just, anxious about all that. But yeah, after a couple years of that, I had to get back to it. And there's, in theater, there's also a combination of literature in a lot of ways and like script analysis, which I'm realizing is something that I really love as well, which has led me to my current new goal, which has been directing a lot. So yeah, I found that everything, as long as you're open to opportunities and optimistic and, the ball just rolls. And if you roll with it, it takes you to where you naturally want to be. So it's worked out pretty well.
100%. I think that's one of the things that, needs to be just championed by everyone and scrawled onto everything that we can is like the people you meet will get you work, right? It's your friends who end up filling in all those gaps. And it's amazing like that. And like you said, taking some free jobs, it has to be the right free job, right? And it makes sense and all those things, obviously, because we've all, I know I have taken some free jobs where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is the first job I had in Los Angeles was like that, where I literally was in a show that was like a reality show where I had to pretend to search for a needle in a haystack. And because of safety reasons, there was no needle. And I just felt my artistry die. Like, as I was like, this is literally like, this is not for me. But yeah, I think you've hit the nail right on the head. It's those relationships that you create. And I think also that, one of the things we have to do as artists is surround ourselves with people who can also like stimulate that, like our creativeness and not let us go stagnant, because it does become an incredibly hard industry if you're not feeling like you're expressing yourself into it as well.
Right.
You talked about film, and I think the problem with film and the atmosphere, at least starting out, is that, I'm basically kind of playing myself in a lot of these things because I don't have the time to establish a character and work on this and in that brevity of the time they give you to work on it. Or, when I went from theater, it's like, all right, cool. Are we rehearsing this? I'm like, no, we're shooting it. Like the first shot is the rehearsal. I'm like, well, what do I
was like, this wasn't an Uta Hagen.
Yeah, I didn't even memorize. What are we doing, Yeah. So I can see how those, it's just such an interesting way of what you're used to and what you're trained with. And I think that's something I feel needs to be addressed in our education system as well with actors, is you're preparing us for something that may not exist anymore. In the same regard, or at least career wise, which is interesting. So what about you? So like, when you moved to Chicago, what was your arc professionally as an actor? Like what did you how did you grow in that? What did you develop and what was Chicago like and all that?
Yeah. Well, I love Chicago. It's such a great city. I just had a blast there, but I think, it was just a lot of advice that I feel was given to me and that is often given to young training actors is find your thing and stick to it, perfect your thing. But my problem was I didn't know what that was yet. I thought, well, I've never tried everything, how am I supposed to know? So my goal was to really just try everything. So it went into like photo shoots, and it went into music, and it went into the film and the commercials. And I did a couple shows, but in Chicago, there's a lot of sort of storefront, I don't want to say experimental. Well, there probably are, but I wasn't involved in anything like that. Like I did a show about the NBA at some point, and it was just like these experiences. When you kind of mush them all together years later, you realize that everything you did stick with you, and you did learn something from it. So even though I've decided I'm not really huge on film, everything that I've learned in film is helpful for what I'm doing right now.
Oh yeah.
Which is basketball player in the NBA.
What's that?
Which is basketball player.
Which basketball player?
It was a dumb joke.
It was you learned how to be a basketball player in the NBA, which is like the one thing I took away from my experimental theater experience is just
right. So I'm just waiting for my dream role when they make the LeBron biopic. That's gonna be
you'll be the character coach for that. Yeah, you'll be like, just bring me in. I've studied it intensely.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did some Shakespeare when I was out there, and we did a production of The Tempest that with the music. So I was a musician, and Iris, one of the fairy ladies, and I don't know, it was a lot, and it also shouldn't be overlooked as being young and going out and trying all these new things, that I wasn't only focusing on career, it was also focusing on like, who am I and who do I want to be, and what's in store, and how do I deal with obstacles. And I think that putting myself in such a scary situation and being all by myself from across the country, because I'm from California, so that gave me the skills to, I think it gave me the confidence to stand up for myself, to ask for raises in situations when people wouldn't do that, to trust that I know what I'm talking about. Because a lot of times, and I think a lot of women will agree that it sometimes can be difficult to get people to take you seriously, but I haven't found that I had a problem with that. Later in my life. So I'm going to chalk it all up to the Chicago experience and really just discovering my own power and who I am and what I want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That traveling is so essential to how, like, I suggest that to all of the students that I work with or anyone, because even though like my travel was literally like 40 minutes away, the transition from like suburb to city, we talked about this a few times, it's like so transformational for me.
Yes.
Because you put yourself in another culture, you have to change, you have to evolve. The safety net is gone from home. And and then you think about all those things that mold you. Every single one of those jobs that you did that was different too, like I think that they inform you as to like seeing things from a different perspective as well, whether it's artistically or just venue wise or just life experience wise. And it's and taking yourself seriously or being able to advocate for yourself as an artist is so challenging because how do you be a professional, right? Like when are you begging for work and when are you accepting who you are as an artist? And it's a very strange transition, I feel.
Yeah, and in some ways it can be slightly problematic unless you can decide like you brought up professionalism, which is obviously extremely important. But at what point is someone suggesting professionalism to you, which really just means don't speak up when you feel unsafe on stage, or that's unprofessional, don't bring up problems, only bring up solutions, which is obviously great advice, but just learning to navigate. Okay, is this person this authority figure, this director or someone, are they as good or as smart or as professional as they're acting or say that they are? And that becomes pretty clear right away. So
yeah, and what are you worth? What am I worth? And like when can I say no to a job? And there's some interesting things that develop, I think, as you like I feel like I finally come to the point in my life where I'm like, oh, I understand why now. Like for me in general, like you were talking about going to college earlier and you went in this place and it was like, wow, I'm doing art all the time. And I realized the same thing happened to me when I was in college. I was so comfortable and I couldn't wait to go to acting class, and all the other stuff was bullshit. I didn't care, and then I go and I realized like what it really was is maybe it wasn't that I really like, it wasn't just the fact that I loved it, but I was in the place I was like, this is where I thrive. Like this is what I'm supposed to be. And then you learn the business side of it. And you start to understand like how to be confident in the fact that, this is my career. Like, who am I as an artist? Like, what am I? What am I selling?
And I feel that it can be really difficult to separate those two sides of the job, of the art and the empathy and the storytelling, with the side that is the business, because, artists don't have bosses. We are our own boss. We're our own product. So sometimes, I've spent a couple years working at a theater. It's like kind of slapstick comedy, melodrama, vaudevillian type of stuff. And it sometimes you go like, what am I doing? Is this art? Am I doing art right now? But you are, but it can get difficult, when you're like, it's the fifth show of the week and I don't know, feel like I want to be here and this sucks. And you really have to take a step back and be like, this is my job.
Yeah.
And this is why I want to do this. And even though it can be difficult, I really want to be here. So yeah, separating that this is work, this is money, this is livelihood. And then you get to the actual rehearsal space, it hits 5:00 or when rehearsal starts, and you have to be able to get that out of your head, or else you're not going to hit your, organic self. And that's much easier said than done. And I found for me, that just takes time.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to play soldier number 4 at some point. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But you better play that good and shut up and do your job well.
That's right.
I totally agree. There's definitely, and I feel like the hierarchies that we get set for us in like our like school levels as we go is like, and then you get to the professional world and everyone's like, yeah, well, we don't care about
that
you.
Was such a huge realization.
Yeah.
You come out of school and you're like professionalism, and I have to be, this perfect, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Calm down. It's not that serious.
Yeah. Are you warming up? Like, what are you doing? I just had
we're not performing.
Bar next door for a half hour. Like that was my warm up. I'm like, good God. Like, what is this craft?
Yeah. But it's obviously important. I always think of it like in dancing terms, which I am not a dancer, but there's ballet, there's the core, there's the classics, and you have to develop that core before you can branch out into other styles and then eventually into finding your style. So it is necessary to get that type of training, but it's always a shock when you get into an actual job and you're like, this is nothing like they told me it was going to be.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, they definitely in the arts, they never prepare you for that, right?
Yeah.
What were some of the shows that really you feel like were foundational for you?
Man, like a theater show?
Well, I think just like any work that you did that you were like, those are the things that I really hold up as like, the defining things for Rachel Tietz.
It's so nice that this studio session is coming up, because in Chicago, something I never expected was to really start playing music. And at that time I booked this like whole evening, this show at this piano bar, with this little theater in the back. And I used to write a lot of music, and I played a whole show of original music. And it was like the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life. and I think doing that was not that it's that similar to what theater can be or usually is, but that feeling that just the immense vulnerability to do that and to hit that. So when I'm doing a show and I can feel that feeling happen, that terror, that good terror, I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right, because I feel absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
So that was a big moment for me. So it's nice. I'm glad you guys have reached out to me about the studio session. I'm probably not going to play any original music in that, but
well, you need the terror, Rachel Tietz. What? I want to be the same experience for you. What's going on?
I honestly don't even remember a lot of the music that I played.
It's all stream of consciousness. It just came out of my soul. Yeah, I didn't have any thought about it. That's great.
Yeah.
We also talked before, and an MPT had told us that you're streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's that all about? I'm very interested, because we at Play Upstream are in the very fledgling process of figuring out our streaming capabilities. In the sense that you're working on. But what led to that, and how's that been, and what's the focus of that?
So I just started doing it weekly on Twitch, and how it came to be is I worked at a company called Channel Awesome in Chicago, and it's pretty much an online web series, and they've been around forever, and I just loved it. And that was the one of the most difficult decisions to make when I moved away, was like, okay, but I have to leave Channel Awesome, and that was really sad. But it was time for me to continue my journey. But so basically, that's how I got randomly and unbeknownst to me, when I got the job, I was like, oh, this is like online famous, which is different from regular famous.
Right.
Because no one actually knows who I am unless you're like an online person. So it's very strange. I accidentally got thrown into having people like finding me online. I remember I was like, wow, I have 50 Facebook friends who want to be my friend. And I was like, accept. And then I was like, what are you doing? These are strangers. So I didn't know. And, so I was good friends with them. And then when I left, my friend took over the position. And so I'm still in great contact with them. And during COVID, what they started doing was they created a Twitch channel, and they have like a whole weekly schedule. So they had me be a guest on one of their shows, and my friend does her own personal stream. And she was like, this is so easy. Let me help you. Let me set you up. She sent me the things that I needed. She's just the greatest. And yeah, I got my first PlayStation like for Christmas this year. So
that's a perfect.
I could learn how to play one game, which is Apex Legends. So that's all I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because quarantine, this has been a long year, but what I did as somewhat of a workaholic was, okay, if I can't do theater right now, I finally have the time to get a degree, which I've always wanted to do, but never had the time. So I got an entire associate's degree in like half a year. Because I'm crazy. Well, because I thought it was going to end. I was like, I got to get these classes in before I go back to work. And I finished, and I got my little diploma, and I was like, well, now what do I do? So I kind of played video games for up until now. But it's fun. It's been really fun. It's through Twitch, and that is a whole community and a whole world that is new to me. You know, they have there's like a special language, there's like all this stuff. But yeah, I'm having fun with it. But the first thought I had was, this is the closest thing we have to live entertainment right now. It's real time. The chat talks to you in real time. So the first place my brain went was, how can I make this theater or music? Or something like that.
Yep, that's right where we're at, right? And when I realized what you're talking about, how it's a whole there's an etiquette, right? And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, if you don't do this, this, and this, people won't follow you, right? They won't care, and they'll be actually like talk smack to you. Yeah, like, there's a thing you need. And I was like, wow. And you talked about that before, you know, this idea of that I'm internet famous, and that community that sort of lives inside of my little box that's on my desk, like is it's such an interesting, different world. And I think the ability to bring something like theater, like where's theater, you know, there's this obviously the brick and mortar theater that makes a ton of sense, right? Like, because that's an experience beyond so many layers, and that it's an art form in itself. It's very important to you know, a lot culturally and the ability of what that is and all the historical aspects. But there's also this idea of like trying to figure out how to modernize that in some way, or make it more accessible and go beyond the brick and mortar now, because it's just becoming increasingly more difficult financially, transportationally, and even to be able to market it to an age of people who can have entertainment at their fingertips, right? And I think that the way that you accomplish those things is get people to understand why it's great, you know, and sometimes just the exposure to the stories will be enough, or the context, right? And so often do we see things where like, well, at this theater we only do like these shows that were once on Broadway and all these things because it has a marketability. And how do you educate about what those other things are? And I'm hoping dearly that we're on the precipice of maybe, you know, finding ways to transport those stories to a digital setting. And,
I feel that you're right on point. And I know a lot of theaters have approached this crisis differently. With the virtual theater, of course, but I know some theaters that have said, you know what, we're not doing virtual. That's not theater. That's not what we do. And I respect that as well. But, you know, I've also known a lot of actors of when all this started with COVID, basically said, theater's dead. No one's going to come back when they do. Why would they come back after this? I was like, damn, you know, that's not true. Theater is one of the oldest art forms. It's just storytelling.
Take a nap, bud. You sound
take a break. It's going to be okay. But it's just storytelling at the end of the day. And humans love storytelling. We always have, and we always will. So as long as you adjust with the resources you have, there's always going to be an audience as long as you're reaching them. So I think the virtual version is a great way to, like you say, to reach out to people who wouldn't regularly buying a $40 ticket to go see Guys and Dolls. Like, we don't really care about that anymore.
Well, we were talking about this before, and one of the people that we're going to have do a show with us coming up soon is we talk about Rhett, right? You know Rhett, and we were talking to him, and he said one of the most. I can't wait to have him on the podcast too, but everyone will already know the story because I'm gonna tell it now. You know, whatever. Sorry, but
Old news.
We'll say it again. Everyone will have forgotten. But it was this idea of like, you know, the fear that if people won't pay the premium for the premium experience if they can get a taste of it for cheaper. And the adage like, well, I'm not going to do my show online because if they're spending $5, they're not going to spend $80 when I'm in person. And Rhett really put it a great way and like redefined, you know, my excitement for this medium and like what I always need somebody else to recharge a battery at certain points. I'm like overwhelmed, like, oh, what are we doing? Is this good? You know? And then he said, you know, well, I love Queen, right? If I buy a Queen CD and I have all of their catalog in the best recorded, sounded way possible that I can listen to all their stuff at my whim, it makes me, because I love what they gave me, I want to go spend the money to see it. When they come in town, of course I'm going to go see it.
Right.
You know, and I think about that all the time. I've heard Dane Cook, you know, comedy when I was younger. And when I found out that I could spend like $1,000 to see him from the nosebleeds, I couldn't afford it, but I would have gone if I could, you know, and you look at all these things. And that's why I think like if your mission is correct in what you're doing, which is like for us, at least it's, you know, if we're doing theater online, we're shifting from trying to make this equal to what would be in a brick and mortar. And we're changing this to like, we just want to make people fall in love with these pieces.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the mission that makes us feel, you know, comfortable with that.
Yeah. And when you're coming from a place of genuine, you know, love for the art, I always say it's going to work out.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, it's I think the exposure for young people to know, like, people right now love, like, TV has taken off. I would say more so than like the Game of Thrones and the Crown and all these like intense drama series. And I'm like, people like drama. They like difficult subject matter. And I've always found this to be, and I'm sure a lot of professional companies agree, that it's tough to pick a season because we all want to do these gritty shows, but you got to put butts in seats. So you have to do Hello Dolly. And then, but then there's the side, you know, but I think that, you know, the white hairs are going to go do that. But if you can get people interested in the storytelling, it's just, there's so many amazing plays. And I really don't watch a lot of TV because I just, sometimes I'm like, this isn't as good as this play I just read, you know. Plays are just so unique and special. And I guess that's just a personal opinion, but I think there's a market for it. And I think young people especially are ready for it, you know? Yeah,
I think it's all context, right? Because even with television shows, I'll see a preview and or I'll hear a name of a TV show and I'll be like, you know, like even like The Girl Next Door or whatever. And I'm like, what is that about? You know? And then, you know, you find out this story in this tale, or what am I thinking? What's the one? Zoe Deschanel. What's that one called?
New Girl?
New Girl. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, Girl Next Door. That's a whole nother thing. Yeah, whoopsie. But, you know, I'll see a thing, and until I get context or someone goes like, no, watch that show.
Yeah.
Like, I won't watch it anyways. I'll put it off. But I think that's the same. It's like context. How can we give context to pieces of work to make them really interesting? Because I want to do like, you know, Samuel Beckett's weird plays that are in the back of the book, you know, that we never talk about or do, because it's just like, well, the 8 people who will know what that is and show up, you know, if you're that into Samuel Beckett, do we want you here? Yeah. You know, but it's that context. Like, how can we layer this with information or excitement? You know, we can't, it's really hard to do a theater show preview, you know, and things, not preview for the show, but I mean, like, you know, with a movie trailer. Thank you. Yeah. And so yeah, that it's just, how do we make more people fall in love with theater for what it is, you know?
Yeah, and exposure is one of the hardest things, because even looking back on how I got into it, it was semi-accidental. And like, I sometimes think back and I just think, what if I wasn't in choir that year? What if someone didn't tell me I could do this? Like, where would I be? I would be so unhappy, or I just wouldn't have this life. And I think there are so many kids, especially, who need to hear this can be your job. instead of here, well, I'm just too stupid, or I'm not good at math, so I don't have a good GPA, and I guess I'll, do something else.
Yeah, this could be your job, and also this is what the job is, right?
Right.
And I think those are two things, because I fear that there are two different ways that a lot of artists get approached. One is, you could never do this for a career. Like, go back to the meat packing plant where
Right.
you'll get married one day. Or the other one is this idea that, like, if you move to Los Angeles, you will be a movie star. And like, it's like that those are the two options we're given a lot. And it's so unsustainable. Yeah. And I still get it from like my family. I always talk about this. They're like, my Nana, God bless her heart, she always is like, Curtis, they call me my middle name. Curtis, we go over this on a different show. Curtis, have you considered auditioning for commercials? I'm like, what? Like, yes, I saw someone on the television was talking about commercial auditions that can sustain you as an artist. I'm like, no, yeah, I never thought about that. Thank you. It's just like the world that people live in, right? Or they'll be like, oh, there's an open casting call for like Jurassic Park 4. Like, you should go. And I'm like, you don't understand. There'll be like 8 million people there. It doesn't work like that.
You ever thought about auditioning for a Christopher Nolan film?
Oh yeah. All the time.
You ever thought it?
Yeah.
Have you thought about that? Ooh, what do you think?
I definitely thought about it, Nana. Thank you. I thought about it, and I realized that no one would care about me. Like, I know that I'm your favorite little boy, but like they don't give a crap about me.
I think Nolan's on his way down. I'm on to bigger fish.
He's not in the phone book. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, but that's sort of the business, right? But you learn like what you went through, and like all of us in this podcast right now have all gone through the fact of like, we all have great ambition, I'm sure, right? And then but you have to continue to figure out how to work, right? And then you build those relationships, and that's how you build this foundation of like, realistic understanding of the business.
Yeah.
And it's complicated, it's challenging, and a lot of times you're probably just going to need to find out how to motivate yourself and find a good group of people to get you there, because it's going to be long and hard,
Definitely. And yeah, it's along the lines of when people say, what do you do? I'm an actor. And they go, what have I seen you in? And I'm like, probably nothing, It's not like that. Yeah, I lived in LA for 2 years too, kind of experimenting with the commercial industry and stuff like that. And it was not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just going to an audition with no lines in it, I'm like, then why am I here? I could have sent you a picture. It doesn't make sense to me.
And the breakdowns that you get from them, like if no one's gotten a commercial audition breakdown of what they want you to do sometimes, like I was helping a friend with one, and it was like, wrap yourself in a blanket like a burrito and roll down a hill.
Yeah.
And this is like, because that's what's happening in the commercial. And we're like, what are you? So it's just a human being going like, whoa, rolling around with their head sticking out of a blanket. Like, I'm like, we spent an afternoon talking about that. And it's just such a random world of what it is. And okay, let's get back into I'm actually really interested in this too. Why directing? What's changed for you, and why is directing becoming a passion for you?
Yeah, I'm finding that I like the, of course, the storytelling, but the sort of the literature side of it all, the analysis. And how do I put this? I like to be in charge.
There you go. Yeah.
I like to be the boss in a way, and not as in like I like to boss everyone around, as in I'm a very big picture thinker.
Your vision.
And I need people to help me who are more streamlined types. So to have found a position where I recently directed Macbeth, and
Oof.
I know. Okay, that was the last thing I did before COVID. It was crazy, but
it's because you said the name too much. It feels like
I know it's all my fault. But it's just to get to sit down and imagine the whole picture, and then what's next, and what I love even more is going to the artistic team and saying like something like, "Okay, I want it to be like this shadowy, explain," and the person goes, "I'll make that happen for you." And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And then you come back a week later and these amazing, like the set designer has made something better than you could have ever imagined or ever done yourself. And then that happens with the costumes and, just getting to sort of be the ringleader of all these talented people and make the machine roll and work as it does. And then I like that part. I like the, and I've heard from a lot of people that they prefer to be given a direction and then take that and run. And I prefer to create my own ideas and then have someone smarter than me make them work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's been great. I really love it.
Directing is a fantastic enterprise. And I think, you know, it's that ability to take an idea in your head and be able to articulate it to people. And I think, like, as an actor and as an artist, like, I know whenever I was in the room, it's like, okay, but I have these ideas and I know that I could see this in a way. And that's definitely and I think being a director makes you a better actor and a better artist too, you know, and all those things. I think that whenever we learn a new medium, it develops us as a person in that regard, as an artist in general. But yeah, the directing side of things is interesting, especially professionally. Like, I don't know. I've been kind of like, I've never investigated, like, how do you actually, you just have to, I guess, go like, hey, I've directed some shows. Do you need someone? I don't know how you start, you know?
Yeah. Like all other things in this industry, it's usually someone you know.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah,
someone
definitely.
you trust. And that's just kind of how it happens. And I found myself, I'm more interested now in being more in one place and really working with my community continuously and really investing in one community and in certain people. And yeah, it's been really wonderful. But I think that no, too many. No.
So close.
I forgot I was with other people. I'm just talking.
That's fine. You know, we were actually just going to head out and let you finish this.
Yeah, I'll just keep going.
Yeah. So what brought on the musical renaissance? Because it seems like you were talking before that you're excited to do this process and seeing some songs that are not quite to the original, ready to rock on that terror journey. But what's brought you back into that realm?
Well, like I said, I was a musician long before I got interested in theater. And something I really struggled with getting into theater is trying to change my voice style and my music type to fit into the style of musical theater, which is just not my style at all.
Right.
And I do a lot of musicals and I do love them, many of them. But it felt, I went through just this whole like long issue with my own voice and just feeling theater was the first time for music that I felt pressure to sound a certain way. And that had never been something I thought about. You just sing and whatever comes out is your voice. But, I have a low kind of raspy voice and it doesn't really market well. And I felt that many instructors and people tried to turn me into, a bubbly ingenue.
Yeah.
And has never resonated with me. So what I do love, I'm fine, is the Shakespeare and the plays, because that's the side that is script analysis and the emotion and the raw acting. But of course the musicals usually pay the bills. So yeah, I think I went through a long phase of just not trusting my own voice and not singing well and not sounding good. And I think I've recently realized it's because the guitar and the music that I choose and the artists who inspired me are different than musical theater. So now what I've tried to do is take my newfound voice that I now feel that I have a grasp on and find ways to find the right shows for me and market myself as someone who's a guitar player. And, the problem with that is all these kind of jukebox musicals that are really popular right now. They're all males who play the instruments.
Yeah.
There's there's rarely any show unless the girl's playing a piano, that the girl gets to be the musician. So, I have hope that it'll change, or maybe someday I'll write my own musical, or I don't know, but yeah, the separating the two styles and knowing that one is sort of like a character voice sound that we're going for to tell this story, but that is not my true personal voice.
Right.
So making that distinction has been really, really helpful.
How has this past year with like quarantine, have you gotten, since we've had more time, have you gone like, oh, I should write more, I want to get back into that? Like, I feel like
I
I've had time to think about stuff. I've started,
yeah.
I've always dabbled with music,
Uh-huh.
but this past year's really when I started kind of rewriting more
Mhm.
and doing a little bit more things, because you did so many Zooms with friends that you got bored, and I had a bunch of time on my hands. And I started writing again and doing all this new art that I used to love doing.
Good. Yeah. And that's just really, it's really healing in such a difficult time. I think that I personally, I didn't really take it well, the year off thing. I felt a lot of pressure to continue. Everyone's like, keep arting and keep going and keep going. And I think that's really therapeutic for some people. But for me, I set my sights. I said, well, you know what? This is a time to get my degree. So I focused on that and just said, maybe it's time for a break. So I haven't, not much, which is why I'm extremely nervous about this dream.
Yeah.
But I try to always say yes to projects that I'm excited about, even if I'm scared, because then I'm forced to sit down and say, all right, you're a singer, get this shit done. And remember that this is what you do. So this is a nice segue back, for me at least, back into the art and into the music. So I know it seemed like the perfect time. Oh, I have all this time to sit and really write all my new music and stuff. That didn't work for me. So
yeah, I think the people who were going to take quarantine and be productive were already productive in life. I feel like for me is like, well, I could write that play I was always going to do, or I could get a pizza and play video games till 4 a.m. It's like, oh, which one's, but I think everyone's it's interesting time, but I think that beneficially for us as artists or creators, like, Cam writing songs, other people not necessarily taking their time navigating it, is I always think that like experiences like this will be beneficial to an artist nevertheless.
Oh yeah.
The uprooting of the norm. Like I was doing shows, we back to back all the time through, teaching at the school or doing my own stuff. And to have some time where I could finally go, like, even though I love it and everything, but to have some time to just go like, oh, thank God I can take a break, or I don't have to do that. Of course, what we decided to do was produce, 20 of them online. So of course the addiction was still there, but I don't know. I feel like that uprooting or that time to reflect on things differently. I really hope that it gave us all a chance to go like, I'm allowed to take some time and breathe and like reflect on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Who I am.
And that there's no pressure either way. I think everyone was dealing with this whole situation in their own way. I think it was therapeutic for a lot of actors and people and musicians to say, oh my gosh, I finally have the time to sit down and do this. And I think that's just as valid as the people who said, I finally have some time to not do this. It's been, and like you say, I think either way or whichever path you go, it's only going to improve. I know when I come back on stage, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I might cry.
For real.
I'm so grateful and just so appreciative that I get to do this because, like I said, I was working in a place that was kind of like a grind and it was really hard schedule. And I would find myself there and be like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to perform tonight. And that's hard to face as well when this is what you chose because this is what you love. So I think I have
me
found
soldier
respect.
number 4. Like I am ready to play soldier number
Yes,
4. Like give it to me. I will be smiling. I'm like, who do you need me to attack? Or, whatever.
I'll have a whole backstory.
Yeah. I don't need nights off. I'm there for every night of rehearsal. Say my line and stand and I'm out.
Yeah.
So you with Shakespeare, is that a bread and butter thing for you, the Shakespeare journey, or is that just something that, cause it's, in theater, that's the most shows are going on generally that aren't musicals or like Shakespeare?
Yeah. No, I haven't done that much is the thing. And I've never really been that. I'm not that person who knows every show and knows every character and has all the lines memorized and stuff. I'm really not that person. But I've kind of given that opportunity to do Macbeth and really diving into that. I felt that perhaps my unfamiliarity. Did I make that word up?
Both of them are okay.
Sounds right to
me. The fact that neither of us know.
As long as we know. But being unfamiliar with it and then reading it fresh and not having seen 10 other productions of it and not having certain performances in my head, I think gave me the opportunity to create something unique, and which it probably wasn't, but well, every performance is unique, of course. But yeah, it felt like a little puzzle to put together. And then I discovered I really love it. And I love literature, and I like, the analysis and reading the same scene like 100 times until it finally makes sense. Was great. And I also feel that because I don't consider myself a big Shakespeare nerd, I kind of made it more, which is how I think I prefer directors to be, is more collaborative, that I could say, I don't exactly have an idea of what the scene needs to be. What do you think? So you do it, it's been great. And so now I've just got the bug, I think. And I'm interested in putting music into it. And I don't know, I have a lot of thoughts.
I think it's just like anything, right? Like I couldn't stand, like, I was like, what's the point of football, right? And then I understand how it was working, what the strategy was, and I found out I was fascinated. I think it's the same with understanding the literature that you're speaking, right? And that, like, that love of that, it's because it's mysteries. And I think when you start to like unpack pieces of work beyond just like, I read the words and I act, I'm trying to understand how they're written, why they're written, what the focus is, what's a metaphor, is that you kind of get some ownership over it. Like, I feel like I belong in that room with that book, and I understand it, and I can have these thoughts. And that's, I 100% agree with you, because I've recently been reading a script analysis book, and I never picked it up. I bought it because it looks cool on my bookshelf. I'm really proud of it. I have a lot of theater books like that. It's like, this is my theater library. And I do. This is how, you can't see it, but when you're talking like this, you have to shake your arms back.
They can hear it.
It helps you
pull your shoulders back.
And then but I finally cracked it open because I'm like, I know how to read a book. Why don't I just script analysis book? Like, this is spent $45 on it, by the way. But I open it and I read it, and I'm blown away by what they're telling me to look for, and how there's some different methods of script analysis and a rehearsal process as well. Because for a lot of people, I don't know, I don't have a list of who's listening to this, but for people who may not be in the process, sometimes the book work that you do as a group is a day, a rehearsal, depending on your schedule. But finding out these ideas about like how to read a play with a group of your artists and collaborate with them in the reading process, because by having choices as a director, you might influence people's thought process before they have a chance to. A lot of those things, of course, I find sometimes drift into the ideal, because it's not idealistic. It's idealistic to think you'll have the time to accomplish those things. But the principles and practices that you can take from it as a philosophy, as a director of things, is brilliant. And the love of the text and the love of the interest in that, those are things, as you can tell by how much I've talked about it in 30 seconds, it's like I get so interested in the intelligence of it. These like writers, it's a terrifying thing that I want to one day be good at. And I talk about this a lot,
writing.
Your terror of playing your music that one night and you like passed out. I wrote like one play one time, and it was read in a college class for playwriting, and I passed out. Like, I couldn't, the pressure was so much that I just I was bleeding out of my nose, and I was like,
it's
I can't.
Scary.
I need like beta blockers or something. Something needs to come down my way. And
I'm no stranger to those. Don't you worry.
God, I need something. I'm like flushing out thinking about it. And but when you just really respect people's art form, I think that's when you go through, like all that wonderful stuff. It's the ownership, it's the brilliance of that. I'm so happy that you find it interesting. And we're always looking for directors, so who else? Like anytime, it's just once you build enough stuff, you're like, oh God, like someone please do this job. Great. Okay. All right. I feel like we did a good job. I'm really proud of us. I think it's time for the most dreaded part of the interview. Rachel Tietz, we spoke about this briefly, and I know that you prepared yourself. There's incense, there's calming, tinctures and different oils for this incredibly stressful rapid fire question.
Rapid fire.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about this.
What? I thought all the things I just said are lies now.
You told me this not but like what, an hour ago?
Yeah, it's okay. There was a lot going on at that time. All right. So rapid fire questions. We're going to ask you some quick questions. Just right off the cusp, don't feel stressed out, but really please stress out about this. Okay. So first off, what are 3 plays that you're dying to direct?
Ooh, it's direct. Oh man.
Yeah, we're going through a lot. We got a lot of rapid fire questions going to happen to you.
A lot of rapid fire. You know what? I can say a lot of shows that I want to be in, but I don't know. I mean, I would love to tackle more Shakespeare.
Okay.
So a specific Shakespeare, I don't think I can think of one right now, but I would do Macbeth again any day.
Let's segue then. Be in. What are 3 plays that you would be in right now? You die to be in.
Okay. Well, I really love the play Proof, and I've always wanted to play that role. It's just a gorgeous play, and I love it. I don't know.
This is rapid fire questions. It's hard.
It is hard. I can't even think of like a play right now.
Yeah. That's one, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna say a musical, and Jesus Christ Superstar actually is one of my favorite musicals in the entire world. I want to be in it, but I also want to direct it, and I want to direct it right, because I feel like so many people get that show twisted. So let's throw that in there. That's not really what you asked me, but that's what you're.
That's
getting.
okay, because you knocked out 2 of those questions at the same time. So
that's like
you're
4 answers.
Yeah, you're not so far behind now. Yeah, this is great.
Okay, good. Okay. Good.
What's a book that you're reading right now or have recently?
I am reading. It's called. Let me grab it. It's right next to me. I don't know
So describe what's happening right now. She's grabbing a book.
She's going to book. Book in the Dark: Untold Histories, Wild Possibilities by Rebecca Solnit. And I got this because I watched an interview with AOC, and they asked her what she was reading, and she said this, so I bought it.
Yeah.
But it's really nice because it's talking about all these situations when it feels so dark and just so dreary. And not only was COVID, but obviously all the activism throughout this year and stuff like that was a lot to take in and to think about. And it's talking about having hope in dark situations, which doesn't mean necessarily just cross your fingers and be optimistic. It means have hope and then do something about it. And I really like that message. So that's what I'm reading. But I also am reading, because I'm the crazy type who reads more book than one.
It's more common than you think. Because everybody we've talked to is like, I'm reading like 8 books right now. I'm like, me too.
Well, like a daytime book and then like a nighttime book. But I'm also reading a series called The Wheel of Time.
Ooh, I know The Wheel of Time.
Oh, good. Okay.
Those books are
there's
humongous.
Like 16 of them.
Yeah, it's so much.
Yeah, so I'm on like number 6 on those. I really love fantasy. I'm a huge Tolkien fan.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of listening to the Silmarillion audiobook again, and
it's like 3 hours of elves dancing. Yeah, it's a real good time.
Yeah.
This is how the world was made. It's dance and song.
Yeah, it's all music.
I'm like, what's happening
with that? Yeah. So
awesome, love it. I'm a fantasy buff as well, and that's a very important part of I think everybody's literature canon should read some fantasy books. It'll get you out of the dull and dreary. All right, great. So what are 3 artists or albums you're listening to right now?
I'm a Pandora person.
Oh, I get you.
So I've always been this way, and it drives people, but I'm a variety type of person. So I like to discover new songs, but I also will go through phases. And a very random phase that I just went through was rediscovering Eminem.
Hey.
So random, but I spent like a month straight because I grew up being like, oh, we know Eminem, he's that crazy guy. But then I started really listening, and it was at the time when I'm in all these like literature classes and poetry classes, and I'm like, this man is a genius. And then it's just the rabbit hole of his story, and it's So that's my answer. It's going to be Eminem.
I love it. I mean, I bet that's not the answer you thought you'd have at the start of the podcast, but it works for us. Eminem. I love Eminem. I think
Michigan guy.
There you go. Everybody. It's always about.
But I also like Anais Mitchell. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of her, the Hadestown lady, but she has a lot of great folk music.
That's awesome.
That too.
Hadestown is great. I love.
Yeah.
I've not listened to that person, solo, but that play is fantastic. Okay, great. So we've got some things routed out about you. What's a piece of advice that you would give an artist who's taking that leap into the big city, like you moving to Chicago? What would you tell them?
I guess just don't overthink it and just do it, especially when you're young. Just go. And if you hate it and everything goes wrong, you can leave. And just to be open to as many opportunities as possible, but to also be smart about it, because especially coming from small towns and going into big cities, it's dangerous and you have to know when it's a scam. And my best advice, I found it, is if it's too good to be true, it probably is false.
Yeah,
right. So that's helpful. But yeah, just have fun and explore and don't freak out about following anyone else's. Take other people's advice and listen to instructors and mentors, but at the end of the day, you're the only person who can decide what is right for you. So journal about it, do whatever you got to do, figure out your goal and what you want and why you do what you do, and then everything will fall into place.
I love it. Those are great. That's great stuff to think about and I think, it's funny when we ask questions like, what should you do as an artist? It's always like this life thing that you should also listen to. Like, you as a regular human being is not an artist or doesn't want. Well, you're all artists, to be honest. But also, if it's too good to be true, it is, bro.
It is.
It's not. It's called a pyramid scheme.
No one's going to give you $500 to go do like a photo shoot when you're like nobody. So don't go.
Awesome.
And always meet somebody in public if you've never met them before. Meet at a Starbucks or something.
All right. Well, Rachel Tietz, thank you so much for being on our show. We have Rachel Tietz doing a studio sessions with us on the 28th of March at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You're going to see wonderful music, and we're very excited to have you join us on studio sessions. And I can't wait to see how we collaborate further in the realm of theater or whatever the heck we do all the time. Just random tons of shows all the time, constantly.
It's all theater.
Thank you so much, Rachel Tietz. We loved having you on the show, and we will see you soon.
All right.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
This is the Play Upstream Podcast.